8:46 a.m., Greenwich Mean Time. Octavian Drake held the grieving Duchess Lupe in his arms, trying to console her. A fruitless attempt at best. The grand woman's appearance, normally sheer perfection, was completely disheveled. Her black designer dress was rumpled, and the tendrils of her auburn locks were falling out of the tight, clean braids she typically wore. She need not have bothered with makeup, as her tears had wiped most of the foundation away, leaving red splotches that clashed with her hair. Duchess Lupe's only child had been slaughtered by an assassin. The congregation silently filed into the most hallowed hall of their people, the ceiling arching 45 feet above their heads. It was the oldest room in the massive subterranean complex. The stark chapel was carved out of the bedrock, its stone altar and wooden benches hearkening to the ancient history of the Morvicti, when struggles were common and burials too numerous to number. The ornate golden chalice on top of the altar was the only element that contrasted with the cave-like surroundings. The flickering light of the torches along the walls illuminated the women's mascara-streaked faces and the men's angry stares, creating a ghastly picture as they slowly made their way in. Coronations, abdications, and weddings for the highborn were performed here, and funerals. In the crowd were the heads of 7 of the 8 noblest bloodlines. Duke Vale had sent his condolences, being unable to attend due to an important vote in the United States Senate. Vale was a good friend and close ally. Octavian wished he was here. In front of the altar, the caskets of the 2 young women were open. Great care and discretion had been taken in preparing the women's bodies for interment. Nancy Black and Gail Simmons, though those were not their true names, were both dressed in high-collared tops to hide the fact that their heads had been severed, and gloves to conceal the missing index fingers on each of their left hands. The entire society had been shaken by their murders. Nancy, whose true name was Nadia Grolin, and Gail, whose true name was Gayleen Lupe, were daughters of 2 who held seats on the Imperial Morvicti Council. It had been centuries since such an overt act of aggression had been leveled against such noble-born. Octavian suspected that the Orthodox fanatics were behind the slayings. If so, they were only using the memory of the Ripper, an abomination in their eyes, to ensure no one discovered their true identities and to further their poisonous beliefs. The priest, in the traditional black robes, lifted the chalice above his head. "The drink of everlasting life." The congregation responded, "May we be worthy in the eyes of the ancestors." Duke Lupe walked behind the altar next to the priest. He ran his fingers through his reddish-blonde hair, clearly trying to gather his thoughts. "Gayleen, my beautiful daughter, she was." The regal man closed his eyes, trying to compose himself. "She was our treasure, our world. My lovely wife had dreamed of being a mother for so long, and it finally happened 32 years ago." As Lupe continued giving his daughter's eulogy, Octavian's thoughts drifted. It was his most solemn duty to bring in the murderer to face trial. Was the killer a member of the Brotherhood of Purity? Most likely, yes. Where to begin the search? Many Morvicti bloodlines had a few secret practitioners of the fanatical Orthodox ways, possibly even his own. The hunt would be difficult. Before beginning the search, he needed to be sure that the body of the real Ripper had not been disturbed. He had spoken late last night with Lisa Bathory, whose brother was responsible for the Sanctuary of the Forgotten. As a sign of respect from her bloodline, she had helped prepare the bodies of the 2 women for the service. He had told Lisa about his intention to visit Jack's cell, a disgusting but necessary task, when he returned to London. She had been surprised, which was not unexpected. The sanctuary her bloodline cared for housed thousands of bodies of the Morvicti, cast off and without honor. Most found the place abhorrent, as did he.
Your will is my duty, your majesty, always. Lisa had a pleasant smile. Her sandy brown hair framed her lovely oval face perfectly. Her eyes were Bathory blue. She was quite glamorous. I will be in London in the morning. I'll contact my brother to let him know to expect you. Anything the Bathories can do to help bring the killer to justice, we will do. Pounding his fist on the altar, Duke Lupe concluded his eulogy, pulling Octavian back to the present. It's wrong my sweet Galen is no longer with her mother and I. All Morvicti suffer because she is gone. Her impact on English popular culture enhanced the global power that has long been held by our people. She helped our cause in so many ways. I will not rest until the one responsible for taking away my sweet Galen is brought to justice. Duke Lupe bowed his head and then returned to his seat next to his wife on the front bench. Duke Roland took Lupe's place behind the altar. One of the toughest Morvicti Octavian knew. Years ago, Grolan had been stabbed several times during an Orthodox uprising in South Africa. How the man had remained above ground was still a mystery to him. My Nadia was crucial in getting critical policies of the Morvicti pushed through. Yes, there are trusted others in the British Parliament, but they do not have her same voice and influence. Like Duke Lupe and his wife, we only had one child. Octavian thought of his own children. Losing them would utterly destroy him. Gazing down at the beautiful faces of the two young women, a protective instinct for his own burned hot in his veins. Someone was slaying the children of Morvicti nobles. Why? How many more would die before the murderer was captured? He had rung his brother Romulus to make sure he was safe, but Rom had not answered. This was alarming to him because Rom always answered his phone. After the attack in Texas on Lucretius's niece and sister, Cassie and Serafina, the security measures of the entire family had been heightened. Luke had brought Serafina's body back to London and was secretly hiding Cassie at his estate. She wasn't a pureblood, so Luke didn't have any other choice. Was the Brotherhood after Rom because of his part in rescuing Cassie? Concerned, Octavian had sent his cousin to check on his brother. Belisarius Drake, known to the rest of the world as Commissioner Bill Poole of the City of London Police, had incredible influence and resources in Great Britain and beyond. If anyone could find out where Rom was, it was Belisarius. One of the attendees standing behind him whispered, "A damn half-blood is behind this." Hearing the slur, anger swelled inside Octavian, but it was pointless to respond to him. The man was not on the council, but his sentiment was the same as most of the Morvicti. Octavian's grandmother had succeeded getting many antiquated statutes changed concerning the treatment of mixed lineage offspring. He had wanted to take her virtuous work to the next level, granting even more rights to the shunned children. But after the deaths of Nancy and Gail, his tireless work went up in smoke. Long-held prejudices would remain inked in their laws for many years to come. But he would never give up trying for his own children, Luke's niece Cassie, and any others in hiding who deserved to be welcomed into Morvicti society fully. I do not know how my wife and I will survive losing our beloved Nadia. Duke Roland no longer had the air of his high-born blood. Instead, all that remained was a heartbroken father. When Duke Roland returned to his seat, the priest lifted the chalice and the congregation stood. And now for our two fallen daughters, whose blood ran pure, let us say the prayer of our ancestors. Everyone closed their eyes and remained silent for several minutes. Purebloods. The law was clear. Bastards were shunned. The mourners recited the verse in the ancient tongue, the meaning of which was known to him since childhood. We drink of the blood, the life-giving blood. Though slumber comes, we will walk on the ground above. Several of the women wiped their eyes. Nancy and Gail's lives had been cut short. They would never slumber again. With the others, he drank down the warm, dark liquid, signifying the end of the solemn service. Everyone passed by Nadia and Galen for a final goodbye. When he walked out of the chapel with the priest to join the others, he motioned to the members of the council, including the two grieving fathers. "My lords, I summon you to join me in the imperial throne room." All seven lowered their eyes and in unison answered, "Your will is my duty, your majesty, always." A hush came over the crowd as the 8 of them stepped down the hall to the second oldest room in the complex. He sent a text to Duke Vale, letting him know what was happening. Vale would join the council via video conference. When they arrived at the entrance to the room, the 2 sentries bowed and then opened the 2 massive wooden doors. "This will be a private conclave," he asked them to set up the screen for Vale. "Your will is my duty, your majesty, always." Once everything was ready, all the members were standing next to their respective thrones, and Duke Vale was present electronically. Duke Marvaux gave the signal. In a unison voice, they said, "Your will is my duty, your majesty, always." Even though those words had been directed at him for several years, Octavian still found them uncomfortable. He sat down. "My lords and ladies, you may be seated." Duke Marvaux called the meeting to order. "The floor is yours, Majesty." He stood and faced them. "Duke Vale, can you see me?" "Yes, Majesty." "I've called this meeting to discuss the measures we must take to protect our children and our bloodlines from this murderer until he or she is brought into our custody." He paused in respect for Dukes Lupe and Grolan. They had lost so much. "I believe we must join together and use our combined resources to locate this butcher. I've already contacted our people at the Metropolitan Police Service and the City of London Police. They are doing everything in their power to make sure that if Nadia and Galen's killer is discovered, he or she will be turned over to us. There's nothing more important than ensuring the safety of our people." "What can we do to speed up this search?" Duchess Savon wore a cream-colored suit. Her makeup was perfect, unlike the other females, which had been ruined by their tears. Duchess Savon did not cry, though her pain was deep, being Nadia's aunt and sister to her mother. It was clear that the Duchess wanted to show strength to the other women. "I want each of you to join me in London at my estate. We can coordinate our efforts from there." "Pardon me, but I have a submission to this proceeding," Duke Lupe said. "Accius, this is not a formal proceeding. Speak freely." "I believe it would be best for one of the council to remain here." The sadness in the man's eyes broke his heart. "There are matters of state that still must be attended to." "Of course, I agree. It would be best to have one present. I would appreciate if you would stay." "It would be my honor, Majesty. My wife would like to return to London to collect our daughter's things from her home. Would you mind if she joined you on the trip?" He placed his hand on the grieving father's shoulder. "I wouldn't mind at all." A few more logistics were discussed, and then they exited the throne room. When he opened the door, he saw a page standing by the guards. The young man was frantic. "Lord Drake, an urgent message for you from London."
9:01 a.m. When he got to the top of the stairs, Austin froze in place, using all his senses to detect what was on the other side of the door before going through it. He could hear a low humming noise. The temperature was several degrees colder than below. His nose could not detect any scents. In fact, there was an odd absence of odors. With Glock in hand, he glanced into the other room. The walls held miles of wrapped wires. The humming he'd heard came from computer monitors. It's a server room. There were no people. Straight ahead was another door. He bolted through the space to the second door, pointing the barrel of the gun in every direction. Still no one. Cautiously, he opened the door and discovered it led to a narrow street. He placed the gun in the overcoat and stepped out onto the lane. The London Eye peeked over one of the buildings off to his right, which told him he wasn't far from the Thames. To his left, another street was filled with pedestrians and double-decker red buses. From the busier street, an attractive blonde walking a dog turned in his direction. He plastered a smile on his face.
There had been no mirror below to check how he looked. He reached up and touched his chin. No beard. Someone had kept him shaved all these years. The woman smiled back. I must not have looked too bad, even if I'm over a decade older. In his most unthreatening tone, he said, "Excuse me, I'm a little lost. Do you know how I can get back to King's College from here?" Angelique had written him that her flat was a couple blocks from her school. "It's easy to find." Her British accent had a lightness that he found pleasant. "King's College is less than a half-hour walk from here, and a little less than that by public transport." 30 minutes. Quite the coincidence. He would wake up so close to Angelique's flat. Or is it a coincidence? He bent down to pet the woman's black German shepherd, trying to appear casual, but also to keep her from getting a clear view of the blood on his pants and his bare chest under the overcoat. "Is it okay if I pet her?" She nodded. "You're American, right?" "I am, from Texas." He'd been around military canines a few times. It was obvious to him the dog was picking up the scent of the blood. The German shepherd wasn't sure what to make of him yet. "Good girl, it's okay." "You're on business?" The overcoat and pants. I must look like a businessman. "Truthfully, I'm in London visiting my sister." I should have come to see Angelique years ago. The old guilt resurfaced. "She's at work, and I decided to do some sightseeing. That's how I got turned around." "What do you think of London so far?" "Very impressive. With its headless corpses and cavernous rooms with people in comas, what's not to love?" Petting the dog, he sensed the German shepherd remained on guard, but had relaxed some. "She's a real beauty. What's her name?" "Sugar. What's yours?" "Michael," he lied, using his friend's name. Was Remington alive? Had he been taken too? Hidden away at another secret underground location? "I'm Mindy." He looked into her hazel eyes. "Can you point me in the right direction?" "I can do better than that." She reached into her purse, pulling out a notepad and pen. "Let me write them down for you." When she finished scribbling, she ripped out a page and handed it over to him. "Nice to meet you, Michael." She offered her hand. He shook it. "Thank you." "My pleasure." She smiled. Under other circumstances, he would have asked Mindy to coffee, but that wasn't possible. His focus was on finding Angelique. Mindy walked past him with sugar. He headed off in the other direction, his mind spinning with a million questions, but no answers. The vehicles driving on the road reinforced the fact that he was no longer in 2003. He passed a parked car and spotted his reflection in its windows. By what he could see, he realized he hadn't changed much since his mission in Iraq. The Londoners walking on the sidewalks didn't seem to pay him much notice. Still on high alert, he scanned the street ahead for any sign of an enemy, someone who might have connections to the scene he'd just escaped. All clear. Trying to appear casual, he turned back the way he'd just come from. With a cell phone in hand, a man in a dark suit stood at the corner where he'd just been talking with Mindy a half a block away. His and Dark Suit's eyes met. 9:07 a.m. Dr. Angelique McCord-Remington glanced at her half-eaten bagel and pushed the telegraph to the side. She was one of only 3 customers in the entire cafe. She'd finished reading the piece about London's most recent serial killer, and the only thing she could think about was seeing Dr. Wilson's name attached to the hideous slayings. She had been aware of the murders of the young women, but had not known Dr. Wilson's connection to the story. There had been no time to read the newspapers. Even now she needed to get home to grade her students' essays, but instead she got another cup of coffee and reread the article. Scientists Question in Connection with the New Ripper Slayings by Carolyn Blake. The City of London police are interrogating the scientist who was the recipient of a letter purported to be from the New Ripper. Dr. Thomas Wilson, a geneticist who owns a private laboratory on his estate, allegedly received the note 11 November, the same day police discovered the victims of the double murder, Nancy Blake and Gail Simmons. Wilson waited a full day before turning the letter over to the authorities. The contents of the letter are being analyzed by police forensic document examiners who did not wish to comment based on the ongoing nature of the investigation. Dr. Alice Parker, a history professor at University College London and noted ripperologist, said the author of the letter is intimate with details of the Whitechapel killings. Whoever wrote the Wilson's cryptic message did have some knowledge of two communications from 1888 that many, like myself, believe actually came from the original killer, Parker said. The Saucy Jackie postcard was sent to Scotland Yard on 1 October 1888, following the Dear Boss letter, which was sent on 27 September. The person who wrote the letter sent to Wilson made a concerted effort to copy the language and handwriting used by Jack the Ripper. Other experts, such as Dr. Kenneth Boyle, a historian with the Museum of London, disagree. The original letters have been almost decisively proven to have been written by a 19th century newspaper reporter looking to sensationalize the story even further, Boyle said. Whoever wrote the message to Wilson, while certainly deranged, is a copycat of a fake. Wilson 70 is the author of Our Human Cousins, in which he posits his theory that a subspecies of the human race is currently living in secret among us. He was involved in a disastrous archaeological expedition to Guatemala in 1973, where of the 7 members, he was the only survivor of political violence. Dr. Wendell Cook, a geneticist who worked with Wilson in the 1970s, said the experience changed the man. He was a brilliant scientist, gifted really, Cook said. After he came back from the expedition, he was a completely different person. He became obsessed with the idea of there being another species that looked just like humans, living in the shadows. The City of London Police is working on the case together with Scotland Yard, according to Commissioner of the City of London Police, Bill Poole. We are chasing down every lead in order to apprehend this dangerous killer, Poole said. Dr. Wilson is cooperating fully with our investigation. The police are trying to ascertain what connection, if any, there is between Wilson's note and the recent murders. They are also continuing efforts to recover the bodies of the victims, which were stolen from the city morgue 2 days ago. Wilson is not a member of the media or law enforcement, Cook said. The man is a geneticist with a mixed reputation. What work of Dr. Wilson does the killer admire? And more importantly, why would this copycat of Jack the Ripper contact Wilson? Wilson has not responded to numerous requests for comments. In the photo accompanying the article, Dr. Wilson stood behind a podium. Seeing his gray hair and the lines in his face, Angelique realized how many years had passed since she had last seen the man. It had been during her first year at university. His words had left an indelible mark, answering so many questions that had always troubled her. At 18, she'd been dazzled by Dr. Wilson's hypothesis, needing him to be right. His beliefs had eased her concerns about how quickly her body healed from injury, and that she'd never experienced a normal, everyday illness, not even a common cold. During his allotted uninterrupted 15 minutes of the program, she'd been thoroughly intrigued. Why is it that some of us heal more quickly than others? Could it be that some of us carry more of the genetic markers of another subspecies? A cousin, so to speak, of Homo sapiens. Dr. Wilson was one of the 5 speakers discussing the state of genetic research and where the field was heading. It was easy to sense the disdain the other speakers had for Dr. Wilson, though they kept their statements and questions civil. The bald scientist to Dr. Wilson's left stated, I must humbly disagree with Dr. Wilson's statement that there is a high probability of a subspecies of the Homo genus, other than modern humans that exist in the world today. Dr. Wilson's ideas take to the extreme a segment of thought in the field of paleontology that Homo neanderthalensis is a subspecies of Homo sapiens, but he takes that idea even further, suggesting that there are at least 2 more subspecies of Homo sapiens and that at least one of these continues to evolve alongside modern man. Wilson's tone sharpened. As I have stated earlier in my hypothesis is that other hominid species with traits that vary from Homo sapiens are likely in the DNA of people who may or may not be aware of that part of their heritage. The United States Human Genome Project should expand its scope to sequence the DNA of Homo neanderthalensis, Homo erectus, Homo rhodesiensis, and Homo habilis. The only woman on the panel shook her head. I must wholeheartedly disagree with my colleague on that proposal. The project is already estimated to take 15 years. It is critical that it continues as planned. chasing a flight of imagination, no matter how alluring, would be counterproductive and only expend the years necessary to complete this important work. After the lecture concluded, the speakers remained behind to answer questions. Angelique was the only one who approached Dr. Wilson. "I enjoyed what you had to say, sir. Very interesting." "Thank you," he said, placing his papers into a briefcase. He seemed in a rush to leave, which was understandable after the verbal beating he'd taken from his peers. "Do you have any questions for me?" "I do. I'm very curious about your idea of advanced healing. How many people in the world do you think have those unique genes you mentioned?" He smiled. His green eyes lit up. "I don't know, but I can imagine it would not be a great number, perhaps 10,000, maybe less." As Dr. Wilson answered her questions, he became more and more animated. "Mark my words, young lady, there is evidence as yet undiscovered that will support my hypothesis. More importantly, once we identify people with greater percentages of these hominids' DNA, we can begin synthesizing their blood and find the cures to most of the diseases plaguing the world." "You really believe that, Doctor?" "Yes. Imagine a day with no cancer, no heart disease, no dementia, no Parkinson's." Her flatmate, Amy, whom she had come to the lecture with, came up beside her. "Angelique, we still have to study for Professor Patet's test tonight. We better go." She looked at her watch. "She's right. Thank you for answering my questions. I really appreciate it." She and Dr. Wilson shook hands. "My pleasure, young lady." She left with Amy. When they were out of earshot, Amy turned to her. "Why were you talking to him? He was the worst of the lot, and that's saying something." "I thought he was interesting. He seems to be a very nice man." "Nice or not, he's a crackpot. Did you hear the others on the panel? Brutal. Can't blame them. He believes Neanderthals are living among us and that they are smarter, heal faster, and live longer. And that stuff about hyper-hibernation sounded like science fiction to me." "It didn't to me, Amy. I think he's onto something." "Good thing you're on the history track instead of science, Ange. If Wilson is right, why aren't the knuckle-draggers running the world now?" "Who says they're not?" She snapped back. Angelique went to hear Dr. Wilson 2 more times that year, but never approached him again. The following year, her studies consumed all her attention, and she forgot about the kind, middle-aged professor with the fascinating hypothesis. Life had moved on, and in 2003 she landed her current position with King's College as professor and program leader of 18th century studies, working jointly with the British Museum. She stood, knowing there was absolutely no possibility that the sweet man she'd met so long ago had anything to do with the recent brutal murders in London. Her mobile phone rang. It was Michael. "Hi, honey. Forget something?" "Hey, sweetheart. I don't think so. I've decided that even though you won't take a play day with me, I'm coming home anyway. Since you have no classes to teach today and only papers to grade, I'm going to finish my day working remotely next to you, sweetheart. Sound good?" "Are you going to get any work done?" "Cross my heart," he said. "I'll even cook you lunch." "Sounds wonderful." She knew not to ask too many questions of him. Whatever he did for the embassy was strictly confidential. "Hurry home, honey."
As she walked back home, Angelique kept going over and over 3 things in her mind: the failed pregnancy test, Dr. Wilson's theories, and the murders of those 2 young women. Thanks for watching Morvicti Blood, Episode 4, Conclave. You've just stepped into something ancient, and it's only getting started. New episodes drop every Monday and Friday, but if you want more now, the full 8-part prequel, Morvicti Execution, is already live. Start there to witness the betrayal that set everything in motion. Want to read ahead and uncover secrets not yet shown on screen? The full novel, Morvicti Blood, is available now on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description if you dare. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. What do you think? What creeped you out? What do you think survives? For early access, bonus episodes, and forbidden lore, join our inner circle, Bloodbound, at patreon.com/Lee Swift. Until next time, keep your lights on, stay quiet, and whatever you do, don't answer the knock at your door.